Hi, guys, and welcome to the fifth episode of Team Talk. I'm joined today again by Sam.
Hello, everyone.
And today, following on from the last video, we're going to go into 5 more Premier League teams and sort of decide who and what positions we think they could really improve on, and potentially let's list any sort of players we think maybe could fill that void better than the player currently doing it. So, moving on to the first team on our list for today's video, we have Manchester United. So, Sam, what position, first of all, is the position you think Man United could improve on the most?
For me, there's two. That would be number 9, so a standout striker. I know they've got Cavani at the moment with some form, but he's obviously, I think, is at 35, 36. So definitely need to invest in a striker, I think. And also, I would say another centre back to replace Lindelof. I know Eric Bailly, but he's very injury prone. And this seems to not really be in favour of what he's going to Solskjaer at the minute. But I still think they need to improve that centre-back partnership with Maguire.
Yeah, I think, because I had the centre-back written down as well for the position that I think they could improve on, because I think although at times Lindelof and more so with Bailly and Maguire, they've looked to form sort of a decent partnership, I can't say that with the amount of goals they concede that you can look past that position really. I think obviously Maguire seems to be sort of I don't really know how he's managed it, but he seems to be kind of like the darling for like Southgate, and with Solskjaer he never seems to miss a game for England or Man United. But I think they could really do with sort of really going all out and getting a big centre back to go next to him, because they do concede too many goals, and you think with the amount of goals they score they could actually be a lot better, but they just concede way too many goals. And a lot of them are sort of really poor mistakes as well. It's not even like you could say they get sort of carved open a lot. It's just a lot of the time defenders being out of position or ball watching and things like that. And I think, like you said, if they could improve on Lindelof, obviously Bailly's injured too often to be to rely on him week in, week out. So yeah, I'd definitely go with centre back. I mean, with Man United they can sort of go for anyone. It'd be interesting to see who they potentially would look at going for, because if they could go for anyone, then they should really go all out on this position. Because I feel like if they were to sign a top centre back, I know they spent 80 million on Maguire and he should have been that top centre back, but they need someone to go alongside him, and hopefully for them, if they do that, then they might be right up there again, but probably even more so next season, because they won't concede anywhere near as many goals.
Yeah, and it also seems to be the fact that they've got to concede to be able to come out and play.
Yeah.
So they seem to obviously always go 1-0 down or 2-0 down, and then that's when they decide to actually switch on and actually start playing proper football. So there was talks of the Ramos, weren't there? But it's a like Cavani situation. You've got a 34, 35-year-old player. I know Thiago Silva was doing it at Chelsea before he got injured, but they need someone young, but also who's experienced and got a lot of talent. And it's quite a hard pick, to be fair, who they could really go for. Obviously, you've got the one that's from Leipzig who's just gone by Munich. That could have been a good signing.
Yeah, that would have been good for them, to be fair, because when you sign someone like Thiago Silva or even Ramos, it can be good, but you're kind of just putting off the inevitable. And unfortunately, it depends really if anyone's available. But if there's someone decent available, then they should jump on it really and get it sorted straight away, because I think that's the difference between them potentially going further in the Champions League and winning the league and just sort of sitting around the top 4 forevermore, really.
It's a hard one because you can go for someone young like Fofana, who's good, is young, got a lot of talent, but is Maguire experienced and like that? More experienced enough to be able to control them both. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I guess the only thing I think is that what they kind of want is they want potentially like an energetic type player who's quite quick, because although Maguire's can be quite sort of powerful, he's very sort of looks like he's running stuck in the mud a lot of the time, and
Very slow.
yeah, and they sort of need someone who can potentially, because Maguire can be quite good at defending, but they need almost that player who can sort of come across Maguire and cover every time when he gets sort of done for pace, and I think that's not what Lindelof does very well. So maybe if they could get
Someone like Varane.
yeah, that's probably if you could design the perfect player, Varane would be that. But I couldn't see Real Madrid selling him for whatever money Man United throw at him.
Or Kumbembe. Is it Kumbembe?
Yeah,
I can't pronounce. Yeah,
yeah, he'd
he'd
be
be a
good
good
as well.
signing.
But yes, I mean, I guess we both sort of agree on that they've got quite a lot of good players. To be fair, Man United, so I think that would be one position that they could
Probably one of the
really,
best midfields in the league.
yeah. So moving on down to the next team, we have Everton, who I think you might have something else written down here. Potentially, there's other positions they could probably work on, I guess. But for me, I think the obvious call here is the fact they need a new goalkeeper. I think that they've actually had quite a good season, but you can never do that well with a goalkeeper like Pickford in goal, because a bit sort of like Kepa at Chelsea last season, he was always their Achilles heel, because you're always waiting for something to go wrong, whether it's a silly tackle or sort of not coming for a cross properly, patting a shot straight at you into the side netting, and it always just seems to be a constant issue with him. And I just feel like if they could get even just a slightly better goalkeeper, then they'd be such a bigger threat, because you'd teams suddenly start going to them thinking they actually not only have a good team, they now have a really good keeper who I don't feel confident scoring against. And suddenly it changes that dynamic from, oh yeah, I can have a shot from 30 yards today and it could go straight at the keeper and it might still end up going in.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have any other suggestions with Everton's team or whether you agree.
No, I think obviously they got that Olsen. He doesn't seem too bad. I can see your point potentially that someone like Dubravka from Newcastle could be a potentially good replacement. I think Pickford, if you luckily for us, obviously you put him in England jersey, and he's another level. He's a completely different goalkeeper, but he has been a very good goalkeeper for a few seasons. But the last few seasons, he has caused a lot of mistakes and caused a lot of points for Everton. But for me, I would actually say a winger or a right back. You've got Seamus Coleman. He's very reliable, but I can't think of anyone else who they really have. And then a winger, obviously you've got Richarlison, Bernard, but Alex Iwobi, is he good enough? See, James shouldn't be playing that on the right. He should be more central. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think you are sort of right. If say you were to not mention the goalkeeper, I mean Coleman's a good player, but I don't know if they still have Sidibe. I think he might be injured though. I'm not 100% sure. He might have only been on loan, but they definitely could do with another right back. And like you said, I think with a club like Everton, when you've got players like Decore, James, Allen, you've got Calvert-Lewin, Richarlison, if they could get a sort of a top level right winger, then all of a sudden again they've got no weaknesses in that sort of
Yeah,
midfield and attack. And I think, like you said, not that people like Iwobi, Bernard, I'm not sure who
they're good
else.
squad players.
Yeah, they're
But they're
players
not like
who, if they're playing 10 games, 15 games a season, there's nothing wrong with that. They will contribute, but it's when if you put them in every game for a 38 game season, they're probably not going to get you any. They're probably going to get you 5 goals max, which obviously isn't great. And against the big teams, like if say Iwobi was coming up against like an informed Luke Shaw or Kieran Tierney, I wouldn't have any faith as an Everton fan that they're going to cause any issues.
yeah.
So yeah, I agree with you there. I think one interesting thought I had was, so I know he's only on loan, and we're obviously going to speak about them later. But I think if Everton could try and nick Areola out of Fulham's hands from PSG in the summer, I think that could be quite a good deal for them, because been really good for Fulham, and I doubt he'd cost too much. And he's obviously already got that Prem experience now. So I thought that could be quite an interesting one for them to look into doing.
That's a good shout.
So anyway, obviously a few decent suggestions there for Everton. We then move on to the pride of London, which is Arsenal. Not that shitty team in claret and blue. And I personally thought there's a few positions that we could potentially work on. I know we haven't had the greatest season, but the position that I thought is probably I think needs the most improvement is the right back position. Sort of, I guess, similar to Everton. I don't think necessarily Bellerin's a terrible player or anything. I just think with a lot of fullbacks, you either want someone who's really good at defending, like Aaron Wan-Bissaka. You want someone who's either or really good at going forward, like Trent, or you want someone who's potentially a good mix of both, like Kyle Walker. Whereas I think Bellerin's kind of a weird mix of neither of them. Like although he scored
average.
Yesterday,
Both average.
Yeah, he doesn't. He's very poor with his crossing a lot of time. Like, he gets in a lot of good positions, but his delivery is usually bad. And then 1v1 defending, he's pretty bad for a Premier League fullback, to be fair. There's been a few games this season, I remember against Villa, where Grealish, of all people, managed to nearly send him out the stadium with a shoulder barge. Against Leeds yesterday, he was caught out of position for their second goal. I wouldn't say he's a bad player, but I just think we could do a lot better. I think there's a few quite interesting candidates we could go for. I mean, I quite like Matty Cash at Aston Villa. I mean,
I was about to say
the jump up that he's made from Nottingham Forest to the Premier League is ridiculous. And the fact that every game I've watched him play, he just looks amazing. So I don't know how much it cost, but he's only 23, which is another sort of thing that's ridiculous for how good he's played. So I think Arsenal would be sort of really clever to go and see if they can maybe tempt Villa with like a 25 million, 30 million type bid to get him and replace. Because I still think we could sell Bella into a European club for about 15, 20 plus million, and then we could almost make our money back and sign a better player.
Someone like PSG, I think, will come through because PSG are crying out for a right back.
Yep, that is true.
And I think, obviously, with Bellerin, I think that big injury he had, that's definitely. I know it's obviously people say that injuries impact people, and I think that definitely has.
Yeah, I think that he's when he first came through, his main attribute was how quick he was, and I remember there was a goal, or I think it was an assist he got against Bayern Munich where it was either Alaba or someone who was pretty quick that he just completely blitzed, and you just look at someone like that and think that's always going to cause issues for other teams. And unfortunately, he did lose quite a bit of that when he got injured, and unfortunately, there's not much you can do about that. And when your main attribute kind of gets killed off a bit, it's going to hinder your level that you can play at.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's also talks of Hakimi as well. I think it'll be a bit too much. I think it's like 45 mil.
I think, unfortunately, for us this summer, unless we get some random cash injection from the owners, we are going to need the 40 million odd that you'd spend on Hakimi to maybe sort of go around the squad, because we're probably going to need a backup left back. We're going to need, although we could probably get someone on a free. There's a few people who are available on a free, but we're probably going to need another central midfielder. We might need to buy Ceballos. We might want to buy Odegaard. We might want to buy a striker because Lacazette will probably get sold. So there's
my position was definitely striker.
Yeah, go ahead to give your opinion on that.
Because I think obviously you got Balogun. They're trying to keep him on a perm, trying to sign another contract. He's only young though. Laka has been a key player for us this season, and I think he has shown what he was, the sort of player he was when in the first season when he won Player of the Season with us. He was a fan's favourite. He's shown his hard work and his dedication but he's just not clinical enough. He's not a person that's going to score you 30, for like 20, 30 goals a season, which obviously Aubameyang had done for us quite a few seasons, but this season there's a lot going on. But Eddie's not good enough. We need to get rid of that. It's a shame, and it is a shame, but he's not good enough. His statements it's proven that he wasn't good enough for Leeds in the Championship, and that speaks levels, I think. And he's done well in the Europa, but look at the competition he's had to come against.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, it's that thing of like, it's hard because I think we've had a few players, like even with Nketiah, he went out on loan. He didn't really go out on loan. He virtually didn't play, and I think he could really do with a loan. But because he's only got a year and a half left on his deal, and it will be a year in the summer, I think he's going to get sold unless he signs a new deal. But I doubt that. And Lacazette will get sold, I assume, because there's no point giving him a new deal. The only interesting thing will be whether we try to give Eddie a new deal but sent him out on loan to see whether that would help. I don't know, but I doubt it. I feel like we'll get rid of both and, like you said, try and bring in someone else, because we're going to have to play Aubameyang because he's still got 2 years left on his deal. But yeah, no, I think striker and right back will hopefully be two positions that we'll go for this summer, but who knows with our recruitment strategy at the moment. They sort of sometimes throw a few random ones out there.
If we get anyone like Willian again, I think I'm going to cry.
Yeah, I think we need to stay away from the 30 odd players who want loads of money, because there's too much of that scary factor of them coming in and then just not, because unless they come in and are like Thiago Silva at Chelsea or Cavani at Man United instantly give you that reaction, then you're almost like, what's going on? Like, this is bad. Like, we can't deal with this. Like, because it's that thing with Willian, he's done nothing. Like, at
220 grand a week, and he's just what has he done?
The way I see it is, say we'd given every one of those minutes that Williams had, but to Reece Nelson, I don't think I could listen to anyone try and argue with me that he wouldn't have more goals and assists in that amount of minutes. And I think that's where it's... Carry on.
Go on, sorry, go on.
I was going to say that's why it's quite annoying with the whole William thing. You think he's rubbish anyway, and then all he's going to do is waste our time and money. Whereas at least if Nelson was playing to a similar level, at least we'd be finding out if he's good enough or not. He'd be getting more minutes, so he'd probably have a higher transfer value if we wanted to get rid of him, or we'd see how good he is and he'd actually show us that he's a worthwhile player having. And he's only 20 odd, so we'd get a lot more out of it, and that's why it just doesn't make any sense to me.
It's impacted Martinelli as well, and that's one player you do not want to be impacted. He's I know he's only 19, and he looks like such an influential player, and we need to make sure that we're keeping him happy.
Mm-hmm. I think I do worry there's some kind of thing in Williams' contract that he's got to play a certain amount of games, and hopefully that isn't the case. Or hopefully in the summer we sell him for hopefully some Spanish club or Italian club wants him for $1 million, or even if it's a free transfer, I don't even care. Like, at this point, he just needs to go.
Get him out.
Yeah, but yeah, I think that's two good shouts for Arsenal. I mean, moving on to the next team, we move on to Wolves, who have had a weird season so far, because they started off quite well. I think they were sort of hovering around where you expect them to be, and then they lost Jimenez, and suddenly, maybe as you'd expect, but they completely fell off a cliff. Like, he obviously was the heart and soul of their team, and they've just been awful since he's been injured. And only recently, again, they've won a few games and sort of snuck back up the table a little bit. But I think with Wolves, the interesting thing is the first position I had written down was left back, because I know Johnny's been out for the season, but I don't really know. They haven't really had anyone sort of play there with any real conviction yet so far, as far as I'm aware. And that was always quite a big position for them, because when they played their five at the back, their fullbacks were always doing a lot of work. And Semedo's been okay on his side, but because there's not been a left-sided player, they haven't really been able to play their five at the back formation. So I think they could definitely do with potentially signing a left back. But I also thought because Moutinho, although he's such a great player, he is, I think, 35 now.
Yeah.
So I think maybe, unfortunately for them, they might have to look at signing a new central midfielder, because I definitely think Moutinho could do another 2 or 3 seasons. I just think it's one of those where he's going to start falling off soon, and you don't want to get to the point where he's already gone, like he's lost it completely, and then you're still relying on him. You want it to be he's still playing whilst being mixed in with someone else playing, and then they sort of share the minutes at first, and then it slowly gets Moutinho slowly gets phased out, and the new player ends up playing more and more until Moutinho ends up leaving, retiring, whatever he ends up doing. But I think that'll probably be the best for Wolves. I mean, obviously they could do with another striker, but I don't know how what's his name, Jimenez is, because if he's going to be fine, then they might be fine because they've got that Fabio Silva, who will eventually sort of come good. But if not, then yeah, that'll be probably where they need to look at. Even with that Willian Jose, he hasn't looked too great since he's come in. I don't know if you've got
It's been a weird signing.
I don't know if you've got sort of similar suggestions for positions, or whether you've got anything else, or
I put definitely. I put striker. I put left back. I think is that you can say, like, when you're saying about Wolves compared to last season, it's just their key players. They lost Jota. Their key player, like Traore, he hasn't been half the play he was the last few seasons. Podence hasn't really. I think he's been injured recently. I think their star player has definitely been Neto. He's been unreal at the minute. That's a player I would love at Arsenal. But yeah, definitely a left back. I agree with that.
yeah, I think if they signed the left back, they'd actually be able to sort of go back to how they were playing before, and they might actually go back to how good they were before, which I think could be a big thing for them to potentially look at in the summer. I think it's quite weird, really, because me and you, along with some others, went to watch the Wolves game last season when Adama was in form, and watching him play then, he like sort of close up was quite something, really, because obviously just watching how quick he was. I think he got 2 assists in that game, and I don't know if he won. I don't think he won the penalty. I think that was someone else. But he played really well that game, and it's kind of weird to see how poor he's been this season. And I guess the fact that he's been poor, Jimenez has been injured, has really sort of taken a big hit on sort of their form in the table. So I think next season, if they can get some people back and some people back on form, then I reckon they'll be fine. But potentially, I might need to look at replacing a few of those players as well. I don't know. Like you said, I think Willian Jose doesn't look that great, and maybe they need to look at getting another striker in as well.
I think he's only on loan, ain't he?
I don't actually know, to be honest. He probably is, because no one's signed anyone permanently in January, really. So if he's only on loan, then I don't think they'll end up taking him on, and they can probably get someone a lot better anyway for this price that they probably have to buy him for.
Yeah, and I think, so like you're saying with the left back, and not having that 5 at the back, that limitates what Connor Cody's best at, and that's distributing the ball, the long passes, to putting the ball over the back, the top of the behind the defence, and then making the wingers run. And that's what I think he's not been able to do this season. That's a big part of their game.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's definitely hard, because I know since they sort of signed Podence, they've started wanting to play with more forwards. But yeah, I think potentially if they get a new left back, they'd be able to go back to how they were playing before and probably be a lot more comfortable. Yeah, so on to the last team, we have Fulham, who played quite well yesterday. It was yesterday, beating Everton quite convincingly. But they have been very sort of ropey, especially recently. But I wasn't really sure with their team, because I feel like a lot of their players are on quite a similar level. Like, they've got a few decent players. They haven't really got anyone who I'd say is like a star player who's maybe better than everyone else. But I thought because I think he's only on loan. The position I suggested was striker, just because although Josh Madger scored twice yesterday, I think he is only on loan, so they might have to look to sign him permanently. But their real issue this season has been scoring, really, and I think they've got a good keeper. Maybe they could do better in centre back, and just in defence as a whole. Really, I think their left back's quite weak as well. I don't really think that Robertson. I think it's Robinson. Um, I don't really think he's that great, but their midfield is quite good. So I think if they could have a better forward, then they probably would have had a much better chance of staying up. And I don't think Mitrovic has really cut it at all this season.
He's been non-existent, hasn't
Yeah, and I think unfortunately, when he's played in the Prem before, he's always kind of got about 10 goals. And I know a lot of people at the start of the season had him in their fantasy team because he is usually scoring sort of 10 plus goals a season, but he's just been awful this season. So, yeah, I think this Josh Madger guy looks all right, and it might be worth signing him on a permanent in the summer. But either way, I think they could definitely do a striker and probably a left back as well, just because I know that Robinson hasn't had the best of times this season either.
he? Yeah, I think Tete was a good signing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I agree with the midfield. You got that. Is it Augusta? I can't pronounce his name.
Yeah, Zanguisa or
Oh, that's
Anguissa.
it, yeah.
Yeah.
And then you've got obviously Harrison Ford, quite a good player. Ruben Loftus-Cheek's quite a good loan deal, but I don't know. When you say about key players, I think their key players are obviously Lookman. That's another one on loan. They've got a lot of loan players. So obviously, and if you think their loan players are not able to keep them up, I don't think they're going to stay up. Unfortunately, I think they are going to go down. But I do think I agree with a left back and a definitely attacking forward player.
Yeah, I think, like you said, I think you think about their midfield like Lookman, I think it's like Zambo and Gisa, Loftus-Cheek, is it Harrison Reed?
Yeah.
I think. Yeah. Even like Cordova Reed as well, who usually plays on the right, like Tete, good player. But I think, like you said, Fulham's biggest issue is they're not doing well enough with all these loan players. And if you think about it, their best three players are the goalkeeper, who's on loan, Loftus-Cheek, who's on loan, and Lookman, who's on loan. If they were to somehow manage to stay up, they're probably going to get relegated like last place next season anyway, because those players they're either not going to come back, or if they do, they're not going to be able to sign anyone else, so they're not going to be any better. So that's going to be a real tough one for them. But that's unfortunately their issue they're going to have to deal with. But yeah, I think like you said, left back, striker, I think they could probably do better in a lot of positions, but that's why they're near the bottom. So,
Yeah.
But yeah, so obviously this is the end of this fifth episode of Team Talk. We've done 10 teams now. We've still got 10 teams to go. And in the next episode, we'll go through another 5 teams. And again, as we've done in this video and the last video, we'll say which positions we think those teams can improve on. But anyway, that's it for this video. I hope you've enjoyed it, and please like and subscribe.
See you later.
Bye.